Yeah. So, a very good morning to one and all present here. My respected Mr. Srinivasan Selva Ganapati, my dear colleagues, and all participants. It's my pleasure to introduce you all to our today's distinguished expert, who is a very renowned personality in the wireless communication industry sector, Mr. Srinivasan Selva Ganapati. He is senior specialist radio standards, Bell Labs, and also CTO Nokia Solutions and Networks India Private Limited, Bangalore. Srinivasan Selva Ganapati is a senior specialist on 5G radio standardization at Bell Labs. He is CTO SRO standardization. He has more than 20 years of experience in cellular wireless industry, starting from 2G era to 5G and also beyond technologies. His experience includes product development, system specification, and standardization research. His research interest includes new radio, multi-connectivity, and mobility enhancements, NR-based massive MTC, IoT over non-terrestrial networks, NTN. He has more than 100 filed patents related to 3GPP standard essential covering cellular IoT, multi-connectivity, and 5G. So it's we are very much fortunate today to have Mr. Srinivas Ganapati amongst us, and I am very much thankful to him for giving us consent and time to deliver an expert lecture in this course. This is, in fact, this is the first lecture we are starting today. So I hope all the participants enjoy and will be highly benefited by his lecture. At the end of the course, you can put your questions in your chat box and also raise the hand such that we can, Mr. Srinivas Ganapati can read the chat box and answer to your questions after the talk gets over. Thank you. I hand over to Mr. Srinivas Selva Ganapati. Please welcome, sir.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you, madam, for the introduction, and thanks a lot. It's my pleasure to provide some overview to the educational institutes. So let me start with my session. So anyone can my slides visible? Is it someone can confirm, madam?
No, sir, they are not visible.
No, sir, it's not visible.
Just a second. Is it visible now?
Yeah, your screen is visible. Your means your mailbox is visible to us.
No,
not
is it my
slide.
Is it my slides visible?
No, your mailbox is visible.
Mailbox is visible. Okay.
Yeah, inbox. Yeah, your mailbox is visible to us.
But couldn't. Sorry, what is it? Why my slides not?
Sir, which operating system are you using?
It's Windows 10.
Windows 10. In that case, sir, there is a slide, sharing option is there. You just click on that and one display will appear, and after that you just click on the PPT.
Yeah, actually my problem is I think my PPT is not visible in this screen. So I don't know. I could see my other things into the screen, but my okay, I got it. It is now. It's not down.
Okay.
It's now.
Okay.
It's now
Yes,
visible.
yes, 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 perfect.
Okay, okay. I think in the list of windows it was very much down. I didn't see that.
No problem, no problem. It happens.
Okay, let's
like
start
that.
now.
Yes, yes, definitely. Thank you.
So now the slideshow is visible right now.
Yes, yes, perfect.
Okay. So I think this session is to provide some brief overview and some key features which are relevant for the radio interface technologies for cellular IoT. Cellular IoT in the sense for Internet of Things, there is a cellular provides the connectivity. So what are all the challenges for a cellular network providing connectivity to Internet of Things, and how those challenges are addressed by specific solutions and specific technologies, and what's going to happen on those technologies going forward. So that would be the brief highlight on the contents of the session. So I think the contents are roughly I have split it into these aspects. So initially it would start with the introduction on the radio interface technologies for IoT and what's the motivation at this moment to have an cellular connectivity for Internet of Things, and also the key requirements of 5G, and which have two of the major requirements were related to Internet of Things. So I'll provide that brief on that motivation aspects, and then the system requirements. That means the radio interface technologies for massive IoT. What are all the key requirements for having that connectivity? So I'll highlight on those aspects, and then we will get into the features which will be helpful to realize those requirements. So to start with, I will touch upon those features which is relevant for having the power saving for those radio interface technologies, because power saving is a key aspect for the massive Internet of massive IoT, because those devices are very small devices and they are battery operated, and they're supposed to be battery operated for a long time. So the power saving features are very critical. And then later I will introduce two current technologies for cellular IoT, which is LTE-M and narrowband IoT. I'll provide some brief overview on those two technologies and what they provide for the massive MTC connectivity. And then what is that cellular network architecture enhancements relevant for providing the connectivity for IoT. And then after that, I would touch upon some key features which has been evolved from the basic features where this IoT was introduced almost 5 years back. So till 5 years, from it's almost 2015, these features got introduced into the specification, and then it was evolving now until now with some key features with further improving those basic requirements. And then I'll provide some brief overview on what is on the store for the CIoT evaluation. That means upcoming features and other things. So to start with, that International Telecommunication Union for Telecom. So they define IoT as connectivity for things. Things means any physical and virtual things, and they should be able to have a communicating an interoperable information using any technologies. It's not only limited to the cellular radio interface technologies, any technologies. So the main purpose would be multiple use cases which has been listed here, the smart metering and smart factory, and then environment sensing and energy meters. There are so many use cases were there, and the main aspects would be that security and privacy. So this ITUT also come up with that IoT requirements as part of IMT 2020. So normally ITU also defines every new standard for every 10 years. So for IMT for 2020, the International Mobile telecommunication standards, when they're about to define, they also consider the IoT connectivity as an important criteria. So that means, so they also realize that connectivity for IoT is a key thing in the future technologies. So that shows that. And what is the key drivers at this moment to have this Internet of Things? Because emergence of new technologies like this AI, machine learning, and the technologies to get some additional information from multiple places and things, and those are all the one driver. And then the possibility of having an edge computing, that means the computing aspects on the information can be placed very close to the radio interface termination point, so that allows the fast processing of that. And third one is a very critical point would be the way the information is getting processed now with the help of this artificial intelligence and machine learning. So that forms the basis for having a new kind of Internet of Things communications. For example, based on the water meters, which is deployed in multiple places with the AI and machine learning, the smart city application can even predict in which particular area there could be a water scarcity and where could be the issues. There are many applications which can come by collecting a very small information, but from a massive number of devices that should be possible. And the new verticals in the sense like an vehicle to vehicle and industry 4.0 and other things, those are also puts a kind of requirements that there is a need for having a communication from the things. Things means it's a physical device which does not have anybody to explicitly or externally operate over it. So now I will touch upon this 5G figure. This is very important, and maybe you may see this particular slide in upcoming sessions also. So 5G is the 5th generation cellular technology. So there are earlier generations like 1G, 2G, 3G, 4G. So what's special about 5G is until 4G, all the requirements and the features which was developed by the cellular technology were focusing the case till 4G, but now 5G, there is a realization that the cellular interface technologies needs to enhance the communication to go beyond smartphones. So that's how they have included the two key requirement scopes, that is critical machine communication and the massive machine communication, as part of the 5G key use cases. So that means the 5G needs to serve an extreme mobile broadband and critical machine communication and massive machine communication. So two of the pillars of the 5G requirements or the 5G system are meant for IoT connectivity. One of them is meant for a critical machine communication. So that would be a totally new different chapter, which I'm not covering. So because that is meant for having a robotics and vehicle to vehicle and industry automation, where the latency is a very important things and ultra reliability is a critical aspect of the communication. But whereas on the other side, the massive machine communication, it is about connecting the very small devices which could be deployed all over the place within the network, and within a particular cell site there could be a huge number of devices, and these devices needs to be, the communication towards these devices should be energy efficient and they should be reachable in extreme coverage conditions. So these are all the key requirements for the massive machine communication, and our sessions will be focusing on this massive machine communication. Surprisingly, actually, the fact is that even though it is defined as a part of a 5G requirements, this particular massive machine communication related requirements and the features were already part of the cellular standards even before 5G comes into picture, because 5G actually comes, the first official 5G specification was available in the time of 2017 or 18, but this cellular IoT specifications were available even slightly prior to that. So that's how, so those are all actually not, the available technologies are not based on the 5G based radio interface. So they are based on LTE based radio interface, but there is a plan to have this massive MTC over 5G based air interface also. Since this LTE based air interface was already meeting the requirements and they are kind of already in deployments, they are also considered as 5G IoT technologies. But going forward, there could be a new scenarios or new requirements which would require an IoT interface needs to be developed based on 5G interface. We will also touch upon that. What is a 5G IoT or a 5G based IoT? So to start with, okay, what is cellular IoT? Very in a simple terms, it is a cellular network providing an IoT connectivity. So somebody may ask, what's the big deal in it? I can have my smartphone chipset which can be connected to a sensor or something, but it would work. Definitely, it would work if you connect your modem chip to a cellular device. But the way that communication system, the protocols and the radio link and physical layer works, it will drain the battery within 2 to 3 days because of the current way of things working for the smartphone. So that is not suitable for when a battery operated things. And also such kind of device will have a low power and then they may be deployed into an extreme coverage condition in a, like basements or in the environments where they will be embedded within the field kind of thing. So that the smartphone systems, that regular cellular systems cannot provide a coverage to that level. So the coverage requirements and the battery lifetime requirements are the key things. So which drives a need for a new technology which will satisfy these requirements. And then why cellular Internet of Things? That means there is an Internet of Things technology outside cellular space. That means on an unlicensed spectrum, there are many things like LoRa, Sigfox, and even Zigbee. Many things were there. Even Bluetooth could be used for a low, maybe in a very localized network. But those are all cannot be on a large scale and in a massive deployments cases. It won't be possible because they would require some additional interface to connect to the bigger network actually. So, but cellular Internet of Things, that big network which is already having a ubiquitous coverage and where the device could be deployed at any place without worrying about where there is a need to introduce a coverage. So those things, and then the cellular interface provides natively they have a very good security and reliability. So that's how this cellular Internet of Things is more suitable for many kind of applications than this other unlicensed spectrum candidates. So now we will get into what is that key requirements for an cellular based any Internet of Things connectivity. The key requirements, this would be the key requirements for irrespective of whether it is a cellular Internet of Things or any other radio technology based Internet of Things. The key requirements, they should have an coverage enhancements. That means that device should be reachable at a very extreme coverage condition than the regular normal coverage provided by the cellular network. At least the aim is to have an additional improvement of 20 dB on the coupling loss. That means coupling loss is the link budget between the base station and the UE. So that needs to be additional 20 dB than the normal device which could achieve. And then the other key aspect would be the energy consumption reduction, because they are all battery operated. So the battery needs to withstand for us at least in terms of years. So how that could be achieved and what are all the features available, that we will quickly touch upon. And then massive connectivity because the system needs to support a huge number of such small devices. So the connectivity in terms of millions of device connectivity per cell is the requirements. And the other one is, since these devices are very small in nature and they needs to be massively deployed, naturally they need to be low complex and low cost. So these four are the key objectives, and based on these objectives the technologies are developed and the features were developed to meet this objective. And from the 3GPP, which is the forum which develops the standards for cellular networks, cellular systems, these are all the technologies relevant for the massive IoT. Okay, in general for IoT. And in that, the second and third bullet, EMTC, the LTE, MMTC, and narrowband IoT are the two key technologies which is currently deployed into the field for many applications. And there is, as I said, there would be a 5G based cellular IoT for the massive communication. But the fifth bullet, which is an NR industrial IoT, this is not meant for the massive connectivity. So this is meant for the industry applications, as we discussed for robotics or the vehicle to vehicle communication. So their requirements for these devices is not massive connectivity. The requirements is for ultra reliable and low latency communication. So we are going to focus on the second and third, and we will touch upon the fourth bullet. The ECGSM IoT was also developed as part of this radio interface technology development, which is a 2G based IoT. But since the 2G networks are slowly getting reduced, that means in many places the 2G networks are getting shut down because the operators are moving towards LTE. So as the interest on this was very less, so this particular IoT application of this standard is said to be really deployed actually. But in case if 2G systems is going in place, in some places if it is going to be there for a long time, so this could be a potential interface technology. So let's first see what are all the features for power saving. So basically the major energy drain component in if you see in the cellular system on the smartphones is, even though, see, the one thing is when you have a actual active connection, there will be a battery drain because you need to actively send data. It consumes the power of your power amplifier, and then you may need to receive your receiver should process and receive and decode. So this will happen very consecutive manner. So there will be a battery drain, and during that the device will do mobility. You need to do a measurement. So those are all major power consumption. But when the device is in idle mode, it is not doing actually any data transmission, but still it needs to continuously listen to the common channels of the network because of idle mode mobility, and also it needs to receive a network incoming data. If you analyze that energy components, this idle mode energy reception continuously, even without any data transmission, that forms a major factor of the energy consumption. So the basic features are kind of targeting to reduce that energy consumption. So one of the feature is called power saving mode. The device can be enabled with the power saving mode. So this means the device, after it transmits, this cellular IoT device after transmits data, it will switch off its transmitter and receiver. That means the power is completely saved. It need not listen to anything to the cellular interface, radio interface. So that means it saves the power definitely, because whenever it wants to send data, it can switch on. Now it's not internally switching off. It almost switch off its RF circuitry so that the major energy is saved. But whenever it wants to trigger an uplink transmission, then it will switch on its RF transmission, and then it will acquire the cell and do the uplink transmission. After that, it will again come back. But the only issue here is this device is not reachable from the network commands, because when the network is trying to send any message towards the device, as he is not listening to the radio interface, it's not reachable. But that's not a major issue for the smart the sensors kind of devices, because they are meant to report something from their side, not to get a command from the other side. Most of the applications, because some applications may need to get a command, but the command need not to be real-time responsiveness is needed. That cases would be covered by an extended discontinuous reception. So PSM, the device does not even listen to the network until it tried to send a data transmission. But in extended DRX, the device listens, but in a very relaxed pattern of periodicity. It may be up to 3 hours, or it may be up to 6 hours kind of thing, which could be configured by the network depending on how and when it wants its network command to be sent. So these two features results in a good energy consumption reduction. And so yeah, this was about the power saving mode, which, as I said, this applicable scenarios are the sensor device or autonomous meter reporting. And the concept is, as I just explained, the UE switches off its receiver when it does not initiate any uplink transmission. It starts a timer. Okay, when it sends an uplink transmission, that time it will not switch off immediately after sending that uplink packet. It waits for an acknowledgement or a network side response for it. Then after that, it would switch off. Then whenever it wants to send again data, it would resume. So this would be the a small figure explaining that concept. So the blue color boxes is the one where the device does an active data transmission, and after that it listens to the network for any response coming for this blue color transmission. So for at least for few cycles, and after that it completely switches off. That mode is called the power saving mode. And after that, whenever it wants to send an uplink data or it wants to do a regular periodic registration with the network, then only it will switch on the network. Then I would so this is the second feature, so which this resolves, or this also supports the network command. That means the device is switched off. The device wakes up only for its uplink transmission, but it does not completely switch off until the next transmission. Instead, it keeps listening to the network on a very long intervals, like in 1 hour, 2 hours kind of thing. So that kind of configuration is possible. So here the energy consumption benefits will be slightly less, but it has a benefit of the device reachable for a network command, because in many cases of an IoT application, there is a need for a network command to modify the device configuration, like the periodicity of reporting and the type of reporting, and maybe network may want to do a health check on how the device works. So for such cases, this extended DRX functionality was the major thing, and I think mostly most probable devices will support this eDRX functionality, because the use case requires some network control over the devices. And conceptually, as I explained, these gray color boxes are the place where the device will wake up for the network command. If the network command is received, it will respond to that, otherwise it will go for the deep sleep. So the first figure shows the gray color boxes are the paging occasions where the device wakes up, and then it sleeps and then wakes up in a periodic manner. But maybe a slightly extended explanation on the concept, in case if somebody interested to go further. When the device wakes up, it does not wake up for only one occasion and sleep, because as the communication is delayed for a longer time, even the network command or paging needs to be buffered, and it may need multiple opportunities for sending that paging to the device. So when it wakes up, it listens multiple occasions, at least defined by this a window called a page time window. So device sleeps, wakes up for a page time window, again sleeps, and again wakes up. So it's a window of listening, not a single listening, because some technologies, other cellular kind of technologies, it wakes up for a very one occasion. But that drawback is that in case if the network command is delayed to reach the base station, then the device might have gone already to the sleep, then the command may not be reachable. So to allow an intra-network delay to reach the device, this page time window concept was introduced. So these two concepts are slightly not very much radio specific or a physical layer specific. This is kind of configured by upper layers, and then physical layer switches off and on. Only this needs to be done. It need not touch any of the waveform generation or the physical layer coding other aspects. So that's what this is covered as a feature controlled or configured by a higher layers. So this is common to all the radio interface technologies, because this does not modify any basic behavior of physical layer functionalities. So that's what I just covered this as a initial set of features, which is kind of transparent or agnostics to the radio interface technology. There could be some slight impacts onto the radio interface, but it would be very minor. Then let's get into the main part of those two technologies, and I'll provide a brief overview on those two technologies, which would be a relevant terms maybe for the students or who are interested to study further on the radio interface technologies for IoT, mainly for the massive IoT. So the first one is called as the LTE-M. So this is LTE for massive MTC, or we also call it as EUTRON for MTC. And I here assume that people slightly have a background on what is LTE. LTE is a 4G communication technology called as long-term evaluation, which is the air interface. That means the physical layer is based on OFDM. and that the operating bandwidth starts from 5 MHz to 20 MHz because it needs to support a larger bandwidth. But now, since the machine type communication, the low complexity is needed, the one of the low complexity requirement is to operate over as minimum bandwidth as possible. So the first requirement on this LTE-M was they would be able to operate on a very minimum bandwidth of 1.4 MHz. Which is equivalent to 6 physical radio blocks. The OFDM radio interface structure of LTE is splitted into the physical resource blocks for scheduling purpose. And normally, a regular smartphone kind of device will work over number of PRBs in terms of 10 to 50 kind of PR. 50. In the range of 50 to 100 PRBs, but now since the smartphone devices, which this IoT device requires very limited data rates, and then their operating bandwidth needs to be minimized, because if operating bandwidth is minimized, there could be a good power saving. So that would be one feature of this LTE-M compared to LTE. And then the next one is the off duplex operation. This also mapping to the complexity reduction of the massive IoT device, because normally in smartphone device cellular modems will have uplink operating on one frequency and downlink operating on another frequency. There would be a duplexer circuit needed, because both needs to have a simultaneous connectivity. But this duplexer circuit would be costlier or complex part for small devices. So this needs to be removed. If the duplex operation needs to be removed, then there is a need for the UE to manage its uplink and transmission and downlink transmission in an orthogonal way. So this is called off duplex operation. That means UE will receive in downlink, then it will switch off its downlink reception when it's trying to do the uplink transmission. So the impact would be there would be a latency or a delay in the overall communication between the device and the network, because it first sends and wait for response and then send. But as the latency or the throughput is not a key criteria for is not a key criteria for the device operating or the objectives. So this half duplex should be acceptable, as its impact is very limited on the actual key objectives. So now, if you see this, these are all the new device categories for the LTE-M. If you see, there would be, these are all the different characteristics of how it works. So the release 13, that 1.4 MHz, there is a great reduction on the device complexity. Sorry. Yeah. So yeah, if you look at the last column, the release 13, so there is a good reduction on the complexity. Almost 25% complexity reduction possible due to this multiple the features which is not relevant for IoT. For example, that MIMO kind of things would require multiple antennas, but IoT operations applications need not have a multiple antennas, so single antenna would be sufficient. And the transmit power is further reduced. The normal device transmit power would be 23 dBm, so it can be further reduced. And all other things and half duplex operation, these are all resulting in the complexity reduction from 100% to 25%. And then the second concept is mainly, as we seen, the power consumption is one of the key requirements, and then having an extended coverage. So normally the device coverage is kind of determined by the transmit power of the network, and then how the path loss happens towards the device. And the coverage can be improved by improved channel coding or many other methods. But one of the things which is followed in LTE-M and NB-IoT was introducing a blind physical layer repetitions. That means the same copy of the signal is sent in multiple successive subframes and frames, and the device will first do the kind of accumulation of energy over those subframes or slots, and before it does the further processing. But in some places there is an improvement related to the channel coding and other aspects also. But the key feature which is used to realize the coverage enhancement is the repetition levels. And then for LTE-M, there is a two coverage enhancements modes are kind of configured or configured. One is called CE mode A. This is meant for normal coverage and slightly extended coverage. The coverage enhancements mode B, it is meant for an extended coverage where the device operates into the very high extreme radio conditions. So in that cases, the repetition levels are determined by coverage levels 0, 1, and 2. Each coverage level belongs to a different repetition levels because the system cannot transmit with the maximum repetition for all the devices. So there is slightly a kind of area or a border needed for a device which requires less repetitions and more moderate repetitions and high repetitions. So for that purpose, this concept of CE levels, the coverage enhancement levels, were introduced. And I think here I assume there is some basic introduction on LTE is known, but even without that, let me try to cover at an abstract level. So basically, when the extended device operates in extended coverage, so when it switches on, it needs to normally do a network synchronization and receives a master information block, and then after that, it will start listening to the downlink control channels, and when it wants to transmit, it will use the uplink control channels. So these four aspects needed from the device, but how these four would operate on an extreme coverage and what is the changes needed from the radio interface perspective as highlighted in this. For the network synchronization aspect, because since it is based on LTE, any changes onto the LTE synchronization related things will also impact the regular device operating onto the same bandwidth. So this device, this system, this part still untouched. So only thing is the device may take some slightly longer time for network synchronization, but that seems to be acceptable because the delay, again, the latency is not a major criteria. But for master information block, there is an opportunity to repeat them. So compared to LTE, this master information block was repeated multiple times. And then system information blocks also kind of configured for repeating multiple times, and how many times the device needs to receive the repetitions is also known from the master information block, or it's maybe a configured number of repetitions. So the same thing is applicable for downlink and uplink control channels. Just time check. Okay. So that's all briefly on the LTE-M. So LTE-M is an downsized or scaled down version of LTE to make it suitable for an IoT connectivity. So in one shot, I could say that. And it achieves the extended coverage by primarily by blind physical layer transmissions. So it is not a controlled retransmissions based on higher layers. It's a blind physical layer transmissions from the lower layers. So this narrowband IoT is another interesting downsizing of LTE, I could say, because again, this achieves the power consumption reduction and the complexity reduction by further reducing the operating bandwidth to simply 200 kilohertz, which is almost equivalent to a current GSM carrier. So the device only needs to be kind of designed to operate on a very small bandwidth of 200 kilohertz. But the only thing is naturally the limitation is the available throughput, because only 12 subcarriers of OFDM of 15 kilohertz is possible. So the natural bandwidth available is 200 kilohertz, and the throughput available is in terms of 200 kilobits per second. And then maybe with some higher modulation, something more possible, but it would be in that range. So a low throughput is one. And moreover, even because it's operating over the narrowband IoT, still the uplink transmission power can be further improved. In case if you want to send a very small data, you need not use all the subcarriers of the OFDM. You can even select one of the subcarriers and then send it as a single tone transmission. So just in one single 15 kilohertz kind of transmission is even possible. So that makes the uplink very much simplified. So this would be really helpful for anybody who want to develop an NB-IoT based device. They can focus on a very minimum aspect on the communication side. They can just focus on even a single tone transmission, and then because if it's a very small data, they need not even care about the whole OFDM FFT kind of thing. So they can even focus on a single transmission, and even that single carrier transmission to a very lower bandwidth, lower subcarrier spacing is possible, which will further improve the coverage extension and other things. So this is meant for really small kind of very small device, which is very low complexity. The NB-IoT is suitable, but LTE-M is slightly for a slightly moderate kind of requirement. So it can support on higher throughput, but their power consumption and complexity reduction is not as significant as in narrowband IoT. So as briefly, if you see, the downlink is based on LTE OFDM based 15 kHz transmission, and it's only operating on a single physical resource block. That means only 12 subcarriers are given for the whole operation, and other things are same as LTE. And uplink is also based on a single carrier FDMA, and but the only other new features were 15 kHz, that is single tone transmission of 15 kHz and 3.75 kHz is possible. And yeah, yes, multi-tone transmissions and a lower bandwidth, lower carrier subcarrier transmissions are the key aspects. This term you will hear from the deployment perspective, because the narrowband IoT, another key attractive thing is you can deploy within the LTE bandwidth. If there is an already existing LTE network, the operator can steal one of the radio, can steal one of the particular PRB, and then you can replace it with a narrowband IoT, which is called an in-band deployment. And our operator can choose to deploy into the God band of the LTE. So this in-band and God band deployments allows the NB-IoT to coexist in a seamless way and in a resource efficient way within the current LTE network. So that's the more attractive part of this narrowband IoT, because during the study phase there are other technologies where kind of developed and considered, but this is more attractive because of its very effective coexistence with the existing LTE network. But there is a possibility of a standalone deployment operation possible, where like in case if the GSM network needs to be converted into the narrowband IoT network, so the 200 kHz GSM carrier can be swapped by an NB-IoT carrier. In that case, there is no surrounding LTE PRBs around that NB-IoT carrier. So the deployment modes, in-band and God-band is meant for coexistence or seamless interworking coexistence with that LTE, and standalone is meant for independent operation, or it may be suitable for replacing the GSM deployments with the NB-IoT. And yeah, I think these are all the, I completed the brief introduction on the NB-IoT and LTE-M, and as you know, the difference on those key aspects of the bandwidth, operating bandwidth, and the complexity reduction and the coverage enhancements part. And NB-IoT have 3 different deployment modes. And this is an interesting information on this IoT deployment related part. So basically, if you see, the multiple use cases are listed here, and they're in bracket where it would be applicable. For example, in a smart grid, most of the places EMTC was kind of used, maybe due to a slightly moderate throughput kind of thing. But like this smart smoke detectors, NB-IoT also could be used, and asset tracking NB-IoT would be more attractive. And for livestock, again, NB-IoT could be used. Smart meters, in many places NB-IoT is used, even though EMTC is there. And this particular chart, which is called a spider chart, which is showing the key requirements of NB-IoT and EMTC. And if you look at from the coverage perspective, they are all same, but the cost perspective, NB-IoT is slightly better, because it is pointing, the blue color part is bigger than having a better value than the orange color one. And battery lifetime, it's significantly, the NB-IoT have a better battery lifetime than the EMTC. But reliability and peak data rates, if you see the peak data rates, the EMTC is very good, considerably high compared to the NB-IoT. If you see the peak data rate axis, the NB-IoT having a lesser data rate. So reliability and coverage seems to be same, but cost and battery life NB-IoT is better, and throughput eMTC is better. So so anybody choosing a use case or scenario, and if they look at that requirements and which of those requirements are closely matching with NB-IoT or eMTC, they could choose that technology for that purpose. And quickly, the comparison of statistics on the coverage, the technology comparison of eMTC and narrowband IoT. So these were all the statistics. 164 dB is a coverage enhancement, and the battery lifetime is for a normal coverage. It is 8 years and 36 years. Okay, in an extended coverage, it can go up to 8 years for the eMTC, and it can be up to 11 years for the extreme coverage. And in a normal coverage, the battery lifetime conceptually, theoretically can go up to 30 years. But this does not consider, this is an estimation only based on the power consumption based on the actual cellular operation. But the battery itself will have a capacity, that capacitor is getting discharged in a very slow discharge, that is not considered. So this is only based on the power consumption on the cellular operations. And the UE transmit power, if you see, the 23 dBm is a normal smartphone devices, but now there is a possibility of having a low power device like a 20 and 14 dBm. This would further reduce the cost and complexity and also the power consumption of the IoT devices. So this low power is not applicable for smartphones. It is only meant for the IoT devices. And I'll quickly touch upon, as we have very short time now. Okay.
So we can, Mr. Srinivas, we can extend another 5 to 10 minutes if you want.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Thanks. Yeah, maybe I will just try to cover upon quickly. So the architectural enhancements. So this is basically, see, another aspect. See, finally, if you look at, we are looking at from the system design perspective. So we define the requirements for the IoT system, and then how those requirements are achieved in terms of power consumption and how the other aspects are achieved by the radio interface. But this alone is not sufficient. The cellular network architecture also needs to be enhanced to allow this communication to happen more effectively, because just only by replacing a base station by NB-IoT and eMTC and a device supporting NB-IoT eMTC, this whole performance cannot be optimally achieved. So it would require the network architecture to be enhanced. Network architecture in the sense, within the cellular network, there are multiple components, base stations and gateways and other things. So we may need to introduce some changes into the architecture so that overall operation is efficient. So that's the intention. So this is meant for a further improvement on that machine type communication over the cellular network. The main part of the why this architecture enhancement needed is the application specific features enabling and activation, because the device is communicating for which application and what is the characteristics of the device. That should be known to the whole network, and the network should optimize its functionality on the multiple network elements accordingly. If the network does not know that the purpose and the objective of a particular device and application, then it may apply naturally the plain strategy on every communication, which is not suitable here. So those kind of optimization requires some network control that would require a new component into the network. So this is the new component into the network. These are all the basic components of the eNodeB and MME serving gateway. Other things are the basic components of the network, but there would be an MTC interworking function and introduced into the network. This would kind of control a communication profile between the MTC application for the device and the actual application. For instance, if there is a massive number of devices in the system in a particular cell, I used to get the specific question, okay, if you say there is 1 million devices are in the system, all of them are trying to do an uplink access, what would happen to the system? So for that purpose, this MTC application and IWF controls the scheduling of uplink transmission from these multiple devices in such a way that network don't get into congestion. And then in case if I want to reach all these devices, I cannot send paging for all these devices individually. There should be a need for group communication. So that also would be enabled by this guy by having a proper control. So these are all key aspects which could be resolved with the help of new architecture. As I said, group-based communication, and then how to assign an IP or how to have even the device communication without IP, because the IP layer overhead is a major overhead compared to the actual packet transmission. So this architecture enhancements can strip off the IP address when the packet enters into the network and then adds when it exits the network. So that kind of non-IP based transmissions are possible. And then small data transmissions without minimum overhead, and how to trigger the devices, scheduling the triggering of the devices of multiple sensors, and also characteristics profiling whether the device is moving or stationary, and accordingly making the communication profile. These are all possible only with the introduction of this new component in the network. And without this new component, the network will provide a blind service, so which will anyhow impact the key objectives. And now we come upon, okay, now we have seen the basic features into the power saving features of extended DRX and power saving mode and extended coverage achieved with the terms of multiple repetitions. So those are all the basic features when this NB-IoT and LTM was introduced in 2015, which is called in the 3GPP as a release 13. But later the system evolved slowly. Okay, what are all further optimization possible to enhance the requirements on these objectives? So I will touch upon some key features which was introduced over last 3 to 4 years onto this. Basically, this is the evaluation path of eMTC and narrowband IoT. Basically, the release 13, as I said, the basic functionality of coverage enhancement and power saving mode and eDRX was covered in the very first release. But later, if you see the next release, there are two features that supported, which is the positioning and the multicast. Positioning also very critical, because when the smart meters or when some kind of devices deployed throughout the cell, and when it reports something, it needs to report its position so that the network or the application knows that from where this report is coming. Like in environment sensing, the position reporting is very much important. But for this purpose, the device cannot include a GPS or another GNSS based positioning. It needs to use the radio interface based positioning only, because that will increase the cost and power consumption. So it is using the radio interface itself how roughly a position of the device could be estimated. So that seems as a very critical requirements for something. So this particular support was introduced for both eMTC and NB-IoT in release 14. And multicast, as I said, that is also a natural need for a massive communication, because if network wants to do a software upgrade or a common communication, there is a need for multicast, because the device network cannot communicate to each one of them independently, because there is a massive number of devices. And there are some additional features in NB-IoT, because NB-IoT is operating in a very low bandwidth. When more number of device comes, there is a need for a multi-carrier operation, so that would be supported. But the key features which enhances the battery lifetime and also mainly the battery lifetime and the signaling overhead comes in release 15 and release 16. So I will touch upon these three features, which is called wake up signal. This could be a good topic for even for maybe the academic institutes to further research on, because the wake up signal can be further enhanced. And then the second one is having the connectionless small data transmission, because the device is supposed to transmit very small amount of data. The overhead on the signaling between the device and network needs to be as minimum as possible. So these two features, the connectionless small data and the PUR, that means pre-configured uplink resources for small data. So these two features introduced in a recent releases in 2018-19. So they help to improve this particular functionality or the performance. So first we will see this connectionless small data. So normally whenever any data transmission needs to happen over a smartphone or the existing networks, there is a need to set up, there is a procedure where the device needs to set up a radio connection. So that will involve some multiple sets of uplink and downlink signaling. And once that signaling is set up, it needs to exchange something else related to the security and radio configuration. After that, only the actual data transmission happens. But if you consider the data transmission size of very small amount of bytes, this multiple steps are really a overhead for a very small amount of data transmission. So the intention of this particular feature is to minimize minimum the signaling overhead as much as possible. So one of the feature is called early data transmission, which means the device need not establish the radio connection. Instead, the initial procedure, which is called a random access procedure, which is a basic procedure before any uplink transmission in a cellular network, that procedure itself can carry the small data, and then you can enter back to idle state without transition to the connected state. So that's what explained into this figure. The device is in idle state. It sends a random access preamble and it gets a response for a timing advance, and a small grant is given in this step itself, and then device completes its transmission and goes back to idle. So there is no need for further steps of connection setup, configuration, etc., which will consume a great amount of significant power. So this further reduces the energy consumption, and this further goes beyond the connectionless data transmission. For example, if the device is stationary or low mobility, and for those devices, if the device transmission pattern, that means if the device is going to transmit for every 1 hour once or every 60 minutes once, if it is known to the network can pre-allocate some uplink resources at a specific time instances, and the device can be kept into the idle state. That means device need not listen to the network for any incoming page or something, and the device can wake up exactly before its pre-configured uplink resource location and directly send the transmit the packet on the allocated resource. So here the RACH procedure, the random access procedure, which we have seen, this message 1, 2, 3, these are all not needed. The device can directly transmit onto the pre-configured uplink resources. So here we further save the energy consumption related to the overhead on the RACH step. So this is also seen as a very critical feature which would be beneficial for a stationary or a low mobility device. So why did I say that stationary or the low mobility device is that in case if the device moves, then the timing advance and other things get disturbed, then it cannot use the pre-configured uplink resource as such, because they are allocated considering the current radio condition and the timing advance. So it is meant for only the small device. And then this wake up signal is another key feature, so which is further optimize the UE's reception related to the paging. For example, even though the device listens for the network command, normally currently the device will simply go and blindly decode the paging at this paging occasion, and it may not find any paging because very rarely the paging could be sent, but the device needs to unnecessarily listen on this full monitor this window and then come back. But instead, before this paging, in case if there is something available here, if there is a pre-information of the wake up is given, the device can simply look at the wake up signal. If there is a wake up detected, then it would listen to the paging, otherwise it can go for sleep. So this wake up signal would be a kind of a very low complexity and a low energy consuming signal, which occupies very less number of resources. So the energy consumption is kind of considerable. So this aims to reduce the downlink monitoring related energy consumption. Yeah, that's all on the basics of those radio interface technologies. So we have seen NB-IoT and EMTC and the power saving features and what are all the key features evolved over the releases until now. But now I'll touch upon, I have only 2-3 slides on related to the future of this IoT in standards and also in the upcoming towards 6G. So first one is the 5G based IoT, because whatever we have seen till now, those IoTs are LTE based IoT, but since the new radio interface, the 5G radio interface is also called as new radio interface. So this is operating on slightly on even a higher bandwidth of around 4 to 5 MHz as a minimum bandwidth. But in case if some device vendors or operators wants to directly go for an NR based deployment, and there would be a need for the IoT connectivity based on NR itself. And moreover, if we see the low complexity devices of LTE-M and NB-IoT, they were meant for only the moderate data throughput kind of thing. But still, there are some applications will still need slightly better throughputs, like industry wireless sensors and video surveillance. For example, if the traffic signals needs to send a video or images of the traffic, then for that the LTE-M may not be that much suitable, that because of the moderate data rate. But since the NR will provide a better data rate, the video surveillance that would be suitable, and wearables also may need to report a lot of data. So there also we see the 5G based IoT would be more suitable. So this 5G based IoT is now under the discussion for specification, and we are expected to have some, at least the initial specification for this 5G based IoT available in next 1 or 2 years. And this spider chart, as we have seen, it shows comparing the different performance of NB-IoT, MTZ, and this NR Lite. This NR based IoT is also called NR Lite. So if you see, it would have a slightly better peak throughput requirements. This black color, if you see, its throughput requirement is slightly better than the NB-IoT and eMTC. And next one, which is under research or under the interest of the community, was that having an IoT over a non-terrestrial network. Non-terrestrial network means a satellite-based IoT, because many places the terrestrial network coverage may not be possible, but at those places there is a need for an IoT communication, like refineries into the seashore or in the deep inside sea, or the maritime or the mining related things would require the communication via the satellites, which is called as a non-terrestrial networks. And the key requirement is how the existing IoT technologies are adapting for a non-terrestrial requirements. Because non-terrestrial requirements have its own different perspectives and architecture, because the satellites may be as geostationary, or the satellite may be a moving satellite, and that moving satellite, how it impacts the IoT's radio condition. So all those things needs to be looked into, and that research and study is ongoing. And there is an very initial demonstration of plain NB-IoT matching, just operating over the satellite bands. It shows the feasibility of the communication, but feasibility is the first step. But there is a need to match the power saving and coverage requirements of the basic NB-IoT and LTE-M when they are transposed to a satellite-based communication. So there are multiple possible enhancements and issues which needs to be addressed. So the current discussions into the standardization is going on how to achieve an IoT over non-terrestrial network. And this is the last slide. And after this, what could be the future IoT scenario? That means beyond 5G, or maybe in 5G it may happen later. So one thing would be the mesh networking across the IoT devices is yet to be standardized, but it seems to be needed in the upcoming cases. For example, the 6G 4C IoT scenario, where the human body could be implanted with the multiple sensors, and each may need to have this IoT connectivity. Instead of all of them having a direct connectivity to the base station, there should be a need for one interim relay kind of thing. So this network needs to have one gateway, which could be another IoT interface, but that should be possible. But this internal communication and routing, that would require further enhancements into the network. And that same thing is applicable for a small robots. They may need to talk to each of them directly also, in addition to talking to the network directly. Even though this side link kind of features are available, they need to be adopted for IoT mesh network. So that is expected to be a big new feature coming forward. And then later we have seen a device with a very low power of 20 and 14 dBm. But even there is a possibility of even a device without battery, but that device can do an energy harvesting based on multiple things like solar, RF, and even it can do an energy harvesting based on the base station signal. So for this purpose, the base station may need to transmit a specific signal which will be helpful to charge the battery. So these were all slightly some advanced mechanisms, and that would be needed when this IoT space or scenarios are getting expanded to a different scenario. So these two I could see potentially an upcoming evaluation for towards 6G for this massive IoT. Thank you. That's all from my side. Maybe we can open up for questions. Sorry, actually I taken another 10 minutes.
No, we started late. 5 minutes late. Thank you so much. So now the forum is open for discussion. So I would request Ms. Annapurna, my PhD scholar, to coordinate.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Srinivasan sir, for your informative talk. Sir, there are few questions from our participant. As we can see in the chat box, the questions are from Bipin, sir, sensors using 5G network status and availability.
Sorry, maybe can you repeat? Let me see the question.
Yes, sir. Sir, the question is, he has asked about sensors using 5G network status and availability.
Okay, can you elaborate sensors using 5G network status / availability? What do you mean by that? Okay, sensors can use 5G networks if it is can support the 5G air interface. So what is 5G status?
My question is whether these sensors are presently available in the market. Or they are available only 5G.
No, actually see, sensors are the end application part. So any sensors which can be connected to a modem or NB-IoT or eMTC modem, it can get connectivity to the cellular network. So the sensors means the sensors have its own purpose of sensing the humidity or sensing the environment or temperature. So that is the basic functionality which it needs to do and report. But the connectivity is only meant for transferring the report from the device to the network. For that, it needs to have the connectivity part, which could be an NB-IoT modem or an LTE modem attached to it. It's not sensing the network itself, so that's a different thing. Okay, sensors are wireless sensors means it sends something which is as part of it, but it reports, the sensor reports wirelessly.
Thank you, sir. Sir, another question is there. Why narrowband IoT and why not wideband IoT? Is it not possible?
No, as I have seen, narrowband IoT is a term for a technology which uses a narrowband. But as you see, the LTE is slightly wideband because its bandwidth is 1.4 megahertz. And if you see the NR based IoT, that is going to be a minimum bandwidth, at least its initial operating bandwidth is supposed to be 4 megahertz because it needs to at least acquire the 5G system SSB. So it needs to be, it's already in wideband IoT. But see, again, the bandwidth, if the band becomes very wider, then its complexity and power consumption, other things will get impacted. Then it may not meet the IoT's performance criteria.
Thank you. Sir, a few more questions are there. Another question is, will the narrowband IoT support for high computational security protocols implementation with same throughput?
No. I think this security protocols for narrowband IoT should be as simple as possible because that modem or the additional part attached to the sensor, it needs to be low complex. So the security should be there, but it would be complex. It should be computable and having a less processing at the device side. So it may be a small kind of integrated protection and authentication. It should not go beyond that actually.
Yes, sir. Sir, one more question from one of our participants, that how narrowband IoT can have wideband support and achieve low power requirements at same time?
Yeah, in my view, it's possible, but it could be a research topic. Okay, let's not see that narrowband IoT is that the term comes because it has to operate on narrowband. So you can think of an IoT system or an IoT system or a design which works on still a wideband and have a low power. So that is a research topic, I could say. But let's not say narrowband IoT it's not that narrowband IoT is a requirement. Since it is working on narrowband, I'm calling it as narrowband IoT. I'm not telling that narrowband is a requirement for IoT. That particular technology works on 200 kilohertz, which is a very minimum bandwidth. So we are calling it as a narrowband IoT. There is no restriction that IoT operating bandwidth to be very narrow. You can go for a higher bandwidth of operation, but that will increase the complexity, power consumption, and other key performance attributes of an IoT. If you could find a way to avoid those issues, you can still have a wideband. That's a slightly a new topic, I should say.
Thank you, sir. Sir, some of our participants are interested in knowing about the security issues. That means when we are considering the complexity, whether we are neglecting security?
No, security is not neglected. See, the device communication is already secured as much as possible for the small data which it is supposed to send. So maybe you need to come up with a requirement or a case where that security is not sufficient. And then in that case, if you see there is a need for an additional enhanced security, when you design that enhanced security, you need to ensure that it don't affect the device complexity. So that's how things goes. Now there is a it's not that NB-IoT is not having NB-IoT communication is already secured. It have integrity protection. It has ciphering at device end, and all the packets sent is already secured based on the cellular system security protocols. But if you think that particular security is not sufficient, if there is a new security threat possible for such use cases, and if you want to mitigate that, if you need a new mechanism, then that needs to be developed considering the low cost aspect and low complexity aspect of the device.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Sir, last question, that whether millimeter band, that means millimeter waves can be used with narrowband IoT.
No, I think there is a confusion. Let's remove the term narrowband IoT. Millimeter waves, can it be used for IoT?
Yeah,
definitely
exactly.
it can be used, but when IoT device operating on a millimeter wave band, so that device, other things needs to be factored in. But definitely, because of that is a good topic for further study, because with the millimeter waves the beam forming is possible. So if a particular cell is having multiple beams, the device needs to only communicate to the other, only that specific beam, and there could be multiple devices into the other beam. So the beam forming aspects into the IoT communication would be really beneficial, but it comes with a cost that the device needs to operate on to that very high band. Whether that the low complexity aspect is possible, we need to see, but naturally this would come in, because for example, if there is a millimeter wave deployment in a particular industry, and if there some sensors needs to work, it has to work on the millimeter wave band. There it needs to undergo a different feature set actually, but as of now, the focus is on the FR1, which is the sub gigahertz band, because the extreme coverage extension, that the 164 MCL kind of coverage extensions are not possible with millimeter wave, because millimeter wave is meant for a small cell kind of deployment.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, for your enlightening words. I hope our participants will get the knowledge, and hope their queries all are clarified. And there are a few more questions, sir.
Excuse me, ma'am, I have one question.
Please do it quickly. Those who are asking question, because we are running late for the next session.
Sir, when we talk about 5G IoT, in India, we know that we have so much population in tier 1 cities. How we are going to cover this problem of coverage and number of users in when we talk about 5G IoT?
I think I couldn't hear him fully. Can someone repeat?
Okay. Hello. Those who are asking question, you can write down in the chat box directly.
Yeah, I have written the question. Can you please just repeat the question?
So the question is about, I think, 5G IoT in India, how we are going to achieve coverage and number of users with such population in Tier 1 cities?
No, but I think that, as I said, the system is already capable of supporting millions of devices per cell, and also extended coverage is provided by different means. So that's not a problem. So it's not about population. It's about in a given cell how many device needs to be supported. So accordingly, the number of cells needs to be dimensioned. So maybe the overall population need not play a role. Instead, the number of cells will play a role.
Yes, sir. The last question is whether the enormous data which is shared online will going to affect any data protection law. There is no data protection law in India. So how it will going to affect the 5G community? The data which is generated in an enormous amount.
This may be, I'm not sure this is there a relevant question for my topic. In general, there could be something needed within network on handling this security. As you said, yeah, in general, 5G is going to generate enormous amount of data, and then how the security needs to be there for 5G. That's totally a different topic, which, for example, if you compare to 4G, the 5G systems have an enhanced security as such, but maybe I'm not an expert on providing more details onto the 5G security enhancements, which even go beyond what is there in the low bandwidth. So naturally,
Okay,
yeah, when a new system comes with an enormous throughput and things, the system will also come up with corresponding enhancements related to security. 5G have its own security evaluation, so that itself is its own topic.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. I think all the questions have been addressed by Mr. Srinivasan. I also thank him a lot for enlightening on EMTC and narrowband IoT and massive for massive MTC connectivity, and also security and maintaining security and privacy. Also, he highlighted on the throughput of upcoming NR IoT, and how to enhance the throughput of NR IoT is a research topic also, because other aspects in the spider chat, other aspects have been already compensated. How to enhance the throughput of NR IoT, that is a research challenge still, I think. So also he explained the power saving features of devices which is using the narrowband IoT. So I think he has given a new dimension of research, ongoing research topics which can be addressed also. I thank him a lot for his nice presentation and contributing so much to the participants. Thank you, Mr. Srinivasan. Thank you a lot.
Thanks a lot.
We appreciate your presentation.